So y'all, it's Monday, June 12th, 2023, and I've just taken a break from my paint mixing expedition, all that, to come plant these little trenches that I dug out before. Now this thing is not equipped to get through this chunks of grass roots because this ground is just not properly prepared for this, but I did change out the small beans disc for the corn and cucumber disc. And I'm going to try that out and see if that keeps it from shooting out too many beans and wasting too many, because my back is a little bit, it really kills my back to drop the beans by hand and then fill in the trenches. But I came down here and the first thing I saw was, so after I made these trenches, my Josephine was sitting in the trenches and just sitting in it and like enjoying being in like a dirt trench. It was pretty strange. And I came down here and see that some violence has occurred, and my Josephine left a present for me that is a dead gopher thing of some sorts. So she's been trying to give me all these gifts because she's very happy to be home. And now I gotta clear out this dead critter. Unfortunately, it's a tragedy, but I think that she knew that something special was going on with these trenches, that I was out here digging by hand with my hoe in the rain. And she just wanted to give me a gift. So that's how this is starting. But I'm gonna just try to drop these Adzuki beans in here with this Chapin push thingamabobber that just tipped over in the wind. But we'll see how it goes and if it drops too many beans again. So now when I look at this disc, it looks like the spacing is okay for my beans without having to thin a whole bunch of them out. Now, the small beans disc does have them much closer together, but then the hole, it's like the little thing that grabs the beans is kind of tall for the small Adzuki red beans, even though it does say small beans on here. And it just really, or it says beans and small peas is what this disc that I had in there says. And, you know, I'm just looking. The only other thing that might be good is this beets and okra disc, because when I was looking in through here, like, I guess it took a while to pick up the beans, but there's a bean, and then, oh wait, is that a bean hiding in there? So maybe this one, it's like, then there's like some really big gaps in parts of here, and it's not really gonna give me the yield that I want. It did shoot out two beans side by side here. So I'm gonna try this beets and okra disc and see if it works out, because after I do this area that I already dug the trenches on, you know, I'm also gonna try to do that back area in beans, and I really don't want to be hand dropping these, and I don't want to have to do an extremely excessive amount of thinning later. So as it is, I'm already gonna have tons of weeding to do. So I'm gonna put in this other disc, and how this works is I gotta I gotta probably take out them beans first so they don't get all caught up. Then I gotta rotate that disc off of there and put this other one on. So I'll be back with you. Now I've got this beets okra Swiss chard disc in here, which has some closer spacing, and I was hoping it would just drop single beans and then maybe it would work better than the corn disc. But I'll show you, I did it on this other row here. And it starts off, I don't know, because the thing on the back does kind of bury some of them occasionally, like these are slightly buried. But you can see it's like, it leaves a gap in the beginning, and then here it's dropped 3 beans. And then it's like still having gaps, because I feel like maybe some of the beans, well, some of them are slightly buried. Well, here's one. I feel like maybe some of the beans are, maybe they're too big for this one, but you know, in here it dropped a whole gaggle of beans, and then in through here there's been some areas where the little thing that drags the dirt over does maybe bury some, but I feel like this one is also kind of sketchy. Oh, here's the part where it got sketchy. It's kind of what made me stop. So it's dropped 2 beans, 1 bean with this like big old gap. And then here it's dropped 5 wait, can you see my finger? It dropped 5 beans right here. It dropped 4 beans right here, 3 beans right here, all together. 2 beans on top of each other, a whole gaggle of beans. There's like 5 beans, 6 beans up in here. And then towards the end there, when I was picking it up, it dropped 4 beans. So I feel like, you know what I'm maybe gonna do is I feel like I'm gonna go back to that corn disc and just do a couple more rows, because like in here only one of these beans was buried. Because I'll show you, there's a little paddle behind the area that does the trench in the dirt that sort of it covers the dirt back up. It drags the dirt over. Now obviously on my hand done trenches this is not going to be adequate, but with all these root clumps, I've got like a couple inches of root clump sitting on top of this, so this little thing can't make it through such unprepared dirt. Now the one thing about this thing too is I've never really been able to get away with pushing it by the handles. I feel like you'd almost have to be on like sand, and not even that. I always have to push it from the shoulders when I push it. So I wonder if I also need to just be more careful about pushing it at a super even rate. I mean, I do try to be careful, but maybe I'll be more careful. But yeah, I'm going to put that corn disc back in through there. And then instead of dropping every single seed by hand before I bury my seeds in 1 to 1.5 inches of dirt, I'm just going to go through and check. And if I need to drop a couple extra seeds with the corn disc in between, then I'm just going to do that instead of having to drop every seed by hand. Okay, so anyways, that's how this is going. Well, y'all, I was having to, go back over the row twice with the corn disc, and I was a little bit dissatisfied. So now that I was trying it in a pre-made trench, because I hadn't actually been able to see the full degree of the beans that were getting wasted by using the beans and small peas disc on this for my Adzuki beans, but I just want to show you what it's been doing. Now usually it would dig it in the dirt and then it would be burying all these. So if you can imagine, well, first of all, I only started with 2 pounds of seed and not 5, and then a whole bunch when I started using this in the beginning. It was not only not covering up all the way, but it was just wasting so many beans. So the problem with this is that also all these extra sprouts, I'd have to go in and clear them out, and it would be, chewing up 3 times the beans that I should be dropping in here. So much for this idea to just give it a try in the pre-made trench to see if it was wasting less beans, because it's just doing a terrible job. So I'm going to go back to the corn disc and then just go over each row a couple times with that corn disc. But I'm going to just go ahead and pick some of these out of here now, even though I got plenty of beans. But because I feel like if I don't thin them out early enough, they won't do well. Well, I ended up just using the corn disc and not having to go back over the rows twice once I had the hopper a little bit more full. Now for this small area, I did end up using about 1.5 pounds of beans, but now that I don't have a big bean shortage, I'm not so concerned about it. I do have some of my rows further apart, so I can have my plants a little bit closer together in the row. And I am going to try to force a higher harvest off of this area with some watering and some fertilization. Now this is the second time that I've planted a large area of beans on my property, but the first time I didn't really plant them for a harvest. When I first moved here, the back hill, which is completely vegetated now, had been farmed previously, and then at some point the previous owner had a bunch of uncomposted pig poop dumped on the back hill. And as you can see now, it's like very heavily overgrown and things like that, with some weeds that have taken over. But even though it hadn't been farmed in a while, when I bought this place, the back hill towards the top here, it was almost barren. It was like nothing would grow back there. And so since I knew I would eventually want to be putting my garlic in there, I seeded that whole area with beans and then ended up tilling them under eventually just to kind of add to the fertility of the area, and it seems to have worked quite well, although it has had some time to recover in general. But this is going to be my first year trying to actually do a big harvest of beans, and clearly if I want to do this whole area, sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath already, but I have a lot of work to do. And it's getting kind of late, so I'm a little bit worried. I hope that watering my plants will help me ensure a proper harvest this year, because it is mid-June. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to go get my hoe out and just cover these beans. I would rather have them a little bit overseeded and thin a few out than have them terribly underseeded. So there were some kind of bare patches and things like that I was just having to pop some extra seeds in. But we'll see how it goes. And anyways, I'm gonna get cracking still. So I did just fill these trenches. And man, I'm so exhausted. I definitely have that recognition. Hey, baby. Oh, your tail's so fluffy. Hey. Josephine saying hi. But I think I was saying I definitely have the recognition that I'm overextending myself, considering it's so early since I've been back, but there is a lot of deferred stuff to take care of. Is that part of a shed snake skin or something? But anyways, I'm only planted up into this tip right here. Now, since the ground here is actually much nicer with much smaller root clumps, I'm gonna see if I can push that cedar through here once I just get the clumps off the surface. So I've just quickly sort of raked with my bent up tool, brand new tool, already bent up. It's still serving me good. But I've just kind of raked the root clumps so that they won't get caught up when I try to push that thing through there. It did just rain yesterday, but the dirt is kind of crumbly. I'm not sure how well that thing is going to be able to cut through this dirt and rebury the seeds. But if it does work, it's going to be great. The ground here is just much nicer, whereas over there's like inches of root clumps. It's a different grass that sort of grows in this area, and it's just responded much better to being tilled. Again, this area has been tilled in the past, so I don't know if that has kind of helped me out here. And this area is not all occupied by burdocks and thistles and things like that. So we'll see this area up here. I still have not tilled because my tiller cable is broken. But anyways, we'll see. It's getting late in the month. I definitely want to try to get more beans in here. And if this works out, it's going to be great. And if not, I'll have lost some beans, but I have extra now. And I might have to put some new ones down. If I run too late with getting these beans in the ground, I'm just going to have to put something else in this area. So I'm really trying to be greedy with the Adzuki beans this year. We'll see how it goes. So interestingly, I did revert back to the beans and small peas disc on this because for some reason the corn disc, when I actually have this little part digging through the dirt, I have this set at 1¼ inches right now. This one was not dropping enough beans, and part of it was because half of the beans, when they would come in here, they would end up popping back out into the hopper there. So I was ending up having to go over each row numerous times with this, and since I have extra beans, I decided that I would just go ahead and use a small bean one. Now every once in a while it is still like vomiting out a pile of beans that is a little bit wasteful, but I decided I would rather have it overseeded and thin it out than underseeded because I do want to have a good yield. and I am kind of in a rush as far as getting them in the ground and germinated and stuff goes. So we're going to see how it goes. Now, because this ground is the way it is right now, even though I have that set at 1¼ inch, it's not really burying the seeds 1¼ inch. So since this doesn't have as many root clumps, I'm just going to go through and rake these little things out with a metal rake and smooth them out so that they will be pardon me, properly covered with, 1 to 1½ inches of dirt. So we'll see how it goes. This is actually going much quicker in this area that does not have large root clumps. So I'm feeling good about maybe even being able to get this entire bottom section planted with Adzuki beans by the end of tomorrow, and probably a good chunk of it done today. So we'll see. Well, it's getting a little bit late out. So aside from that part, I have gotten all the way down through here planted, and the beans are, some of them are a little bit too close to the surface. Others of them are about 3/4 inches down. So I'm just gonna take the flat side of a metal rake and rake this over, except for this last row, which I left without beans just as a place marker of where I left off. And this is about how many beans I have left out of 5 14-ounce bags from today. So I feel like I will be able to get this whole area planted with the bags that I bought, and maybe possibly even have 1 bag extra left like I was hoping for myself to eat. So we'll see how it goes. I think overall it's gonna be okay as long as I get these to germinate and everything. My rows are a little bit closer together over here. Over there, it's on the part close to the hill, the mat of roots is so thick it's hard to make the rows too close because there's not enough places for the roots to go. So, well, you can't see them super well in this light anymore, but the farmer next door has got beans in that have germinated. These went in shortly after I, oops, sorry for how shaky it is, shortly after I arrived back after my 2-year absence. Now, some of these beans are super duper close together. So I'm feeling like this video is not good. I apologize. I'm not going to go walk out into his field though, because I know there's some planted closer, but they haven't come up, and they might not because sometimes this area gets too much water. But we see here on the edge are the beans he planted. Some of these didn't make it far enough down. And you'll see they're a little bit pinkish. They're like maybe a cranberry bean they've planted before on contract. So this last row here didn't get buried proper, so I don't know how that's gonna work out. But anyways, I figure if his beans are that close together, I should be okay. We'll see how much thinning I have to do later. But anyways, I'm just gonna go get my metal rake, and I don't know, maybe I'll have to use the pronged side, or, because I'm gonna get a heavy metal rake and do this. But I don't want to overbury my beans either, so it's a little bit tough. Now, that little cedar thing that I was using, I feel like it has helped me a lot on this section where the ground is in better shape. I still have to push it from the shoulders, and it still does spit out an awful lot of seeds, but it has helped me out a great deal. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I am not a professional farmer. I've had a very abundant gourmet garlic harvest, which are all hand planted and hand harvested. But other than that, I haven't, I've done, normal people stuff, but not vast areas of beans that I've been planning on harvesting. So this is going to be a first for me. I don't expect anybody to find these videos too interesting. I'm kind of a little bit silly and figuring this out as I go. But this is kind of to help keep myself accountable and for my family to watch, and maybe one day in the future my grandbabies will watch this channel and see what kind of person their grandma was. I lost my parents when I was younger, when my daughter was very young, and before she was born in the case of my mother, so she herself doesn't really know firsthand what kind of people her grandparents were. And so, I don't know, I feel like this is a nice little project to look back on one day. But I'm gonna go get that rake and wrap up out here. Well, y'all, it's getting a little bit dark outside, and I was looking everywhere for wherever the heck I set my tablet down after the last clip. I'm such a doofus. I had set it down on there, but I had the black side up. I couldn't hardly see it when I walked by. I was walking all the way down here, all over the edges, looking for wherever the heck I put my tablet. But anyways, I got that part raked, and I just wanted to say, I am going to be uploading 2 videos tonight, June 12th, Monday of 2023. My other video is going to take a really long time to upload, and it is my indoor kitchen wall paint fiasco mixing. I am very satisfied with how that color eventually worked out, the saturation and depth and everything. And the, whoo, there, beautiful. It's an owl perched on top of my barn. Anyways, we got a lot of wildlife out here. Blue herons, I think they are, that are really huge and everything. But he's probably looking for rodents like Josephine likes to look for them. I do got to be careful because there are some really big birds that might try to carry off Josephine. But anyways, my only goal tomorrow, even though I've got so many projects stacked up, my primary goal is to just finish planting my beans down here. And then I'll just see how I want to prioritize things, because I do have some different timelines. I've got my flock of 34 birds, including the African geese, silver appleyard ducks, Brahma roosters and hens, and Welsummer hens coming in at the end of July, or right around my birthday. I'm going to be 38 years old, and I'm already an empty nester. It's a little bit trippy. I'm not quite ready to be an empty nester, but it just is what it is. The kiddo is out farming the fiat in the city, trying to get her own adulthood going, having some adventures. But yeah, we're going to see how things go with inside. So I've got my birds coming in, and then I got to get the asphalt, fiber asphalt tarish stuff covered on at least that half of the garage, which is going to be very physically laborious. I've eventually got my liquid rubber coming in for my deck. I got to get kitchen sink running, all sorts of stuff, and then I got to try to salvage my garlic. That's going to be probably towards maybe even like the end of July, so it's going to be around when my birds are coming in, and then I got to get fencing up for the birds before they get too big, and it's just a whole lot. So I am really focused on trying not to burn out too early. It's kind of how it's going to be. Now, these videos are taking forever to upload, so is why I'm going to do this one separate from the other one, because even with my Ethernet cable, my upload speeds are horrible, and it's not just my video upload speeds, it's all my internet. I've got a little bit of a malignant man in the middle situation going on that I thought, maybe if I hooked up to Ethernet, they would let it slide, but it's still just as egregious. Some folks who bizarrely feel entitled to my efforts are a little disaffected with me being out here posting YouTube videos instead of doing some other work they would prefer me be doing that I don't feel like doing. And so we have a little bit of a situation. But I'm going to keep on carrying on. It's tough. I've been getting locked out of just financial institution websites, trying to get basic banking done. I've got a overall pretty hostile internet access situation going on right now, but we're working it out. And you know, when I go inside, I don't hardly drink very often because I've got what's called an MTHFR genetic mutation, which means I have glutathione insufficiency issues, so I don't drink too often. But when I go inside, I'm going to have half of one of them Guinness stouts with some ice cream. That's how it's going to be. Take it easy.